Hi, I'm Chris Tailby from Craft Life Academy, and today I'm going to be talking about two proven, tried and tested strategies for generating six-figure stores on both Etsy and Amazon. And it's using two tried and tested methods, one which I call the numbers game and the second which I call the niche down game. So let's get started. Alrighty, when it comes to being a top seller on Amazon or Etsy, it's important to have a strategy. And there are lots of different strategies, but what you'll often find is that people have a strategy, successful sellers will have a strategy even before they start in place. And it's never too late to get a strategy, by the way. So obviously if you're cruising along and just not getting the growth that you'd like, then it's always good to learn some new tips and tricks and strategies which you might be able to employ. So what we're going to be looking at today is two strategies which are tried and tested, well proven, and lots of sellers have made six-figure shops from these two methods. And let's just take a look. So we've got the numbers game versus the niche game, and two completely different strategies of making money on Etsy and Amazon. So first I'm going to look at the numbers game, and this is really how it sounds. The numbers game is all about adding lots of products to your store over time. So this could be up to like 30 to 50 new products a week when you're getting started. And an example would be in recent times the digital downloads that you're seeing that have become really popular, like the planners and the day-to-day to-do lists and things like that, of which there are hundreds. And people are just taking those designs into Canva and creating their own unique designs. And they're doing sort of like, maybe even 5 to 10 different versions if they get a design that's sort of selling well, and literally just building on it like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 a week. Really, because it's the work is put in the early days. You could work really hard for maybe 6 months a year to get hundreds and hundreds of these digital downloads into your store, and then you might be able to ease off a little bit on the hard work because there's no fulfillment other than it's just a digital download. You can start reaping the rewards in time, but it is very saturated. And I'm going to be looking at a different example today, which is also saturated somewhat, but there are lots of variations of this particular strategy which you can still deploy very successfully. So first off, the numbers game. I'm going to be looking at one example which has been made really popular by the Etsy coach, Etsy and Amazon coach, Rachel Roffey, which is to find a really funny mug, custom mug, funny mug on Etsy or Amazon that is a bestseller, and to take its design and to take a quick look and to just tweak it somewhat. So here's an example of a mug that's sold hundreds, thousands of this particular design. And it just says, "Dear Mum, thanks for putting up with a spoiled, ungrateful, messy, bratty child like my sibling. Love, your favorite." So that's a good example of what I would call a family oriented mug. So there's the same funny designs for mugs for dads, mugs for mums, mugs for daughters, mugs for brothers, and things like that. And it's a case of literally just doing a search, funny dad mug, funny mum mug, funny sister mug, funny brother mug, and funny uncle mug, or whatever it is that you want to just keep looking for, and just looking for those mugs that have recorded hundreds of reviews. Well, actually, you don't even need hundreds of reviews. In all fairness, if you can get a design which sold 10 to 15 reviews plus, that's a pretty good chance that mug has sold actually 10 times that, because only around about 1 in 10 people sort of leave a review. So even if the number's much smaller, it's still a pretty good example of a good selling item, especially when you compare doing that little test with when the item was first introduced. So if it's a fairly new product that's recorded, reviews and sales, then it's a good example of potentially a mug that's going to be on its sort of growth spell at the moment. And so you can vary it between really hot, powerful selling items to the items that have just been released that are recording reviews and sales early on. So both can be sort of like chased after, if you like. But this is an example of playing the numbers game, because in this example you'll see there's a mug with some text dropped onto it, and this mug, for instance, may not have ever been made. Obviously this particular picture, it has been made, but in many cases people are dropping designs onto designs and text pictures onto mugs, onto blank pictures or images of mug in Canva, Photoshop, or even just their paint program, with just the actual design on them, taking a photograph and then taking the time to do a really good listing and then to add that into their shop. And that's how it's done in scale and how it's done fast, because what you'd be doing is really spending most of your time on the product research, and that is to look for the best-selling designs to readapt for yourself. And then it's a case of actually just dropping them into your actual paint program. And I'll show you how to do that. So back to the example. This is literally just in my paint program, and you can see how I've just dropped some text onto a mug in here. Just a bad day at golf. It's still better than a good day in the office. This is an example of like a hobby, which I said earlier from the list. You've got so many types for each hobby, occupation, pets, family, lifestyle. There's hundreds of different variations of hot selling, in demand mugs, for instance. And this obviously is a mug, but it could easily be a sign, vintage sign, or a modern day sign, custom sign, funny sign. There's lots of signs that have created using metal blanks, and the image could just be dropped onto a blank metal blank photo. It could be other things like quotes in frames, things like that. There's also lots of hot selling items where you've just got quotes in frames. This could be a funny quote or a religious quote. Religion is really big. And it's just a case of looking at the different ways in which you can sort of scale quickly without actually having to create your product. And so that's just one example of playing the numbers game. Well, two examples. I mentioned the digital downloads, but that's just another example with the best-selling mugs. Literally just finding designs, dropping them into Paint or your Photoshop program or Canva, and just putting them up for sale. Now, there is a strategy to come here, which I'm going to be talking about in the top 4 tips, because there's a lot more to it than just that. But that is just the starting point. And obviously, Rachel, as I mentioned, Rachel Roffey, the coach, who the system was originally made very sort of widely populated with, uses the print on demand method. So it would be a case of like step 1, finding lots of in-demand mugs, for instance. Step 2, dropping your designs onto them in volume, and step 3, putting them up for sale in Etsy and Amazon. And as I say, there is a strategy to it. There's more to it than that, but that is just the starting point. And obviously Rachel does the print on demand, so it's a case of doing the designs and doing a good job of the listing and putting them up for sale in your Etsy and Amazon stores. And when you get a sale, then shoot them off to the print on demand company to make and fulfill your mug. Now, what I do is the actual water slide technology, which is really just a way of keeping all the money for yourself, because a lot of your profits can get taken down as soon as you've got these outgoings, especially when you're paying sort of like $4, $5, $6 plus a mug to get them made. And because it's sometimes when the mugs become really popular or really competitive, the price comes down, margins get squeezed, and you end up making very little. So just one way of keeping all the money, or most of the money, for yourself is to actually learn how to do this for yourself really quickly. And I'll put a link in the description. I give a 1-hour free training on how to actually make these yourself for around about $1.20, and then therefore keeping all the money apart from the store fees to yourself. Now moving on to the niche game. So this is just a completely separate method. Now this involves really having a much smaller product range, and so you might only be starting off and only plan to sort of sell, say, you know, between up to like a dozen items just to sort of get going with. And this involves taking a very popular niche, for instance, and I've just picked candles as an example here because obviously candles is a very popular niche with many six-figure store sellers. And the trick here is to obviously you start off wide with candles and then just move down to what I would call like the sweet spot. So from candles you would then sort of look well towards like the luxury candles. I'll explain why in a second in the top tips strategy, but for here we start off with the very popular and we niche down, so we go to luxury candles, and from there moving down, say for instance luxury organic candles, and from here we go down as to see exactly what sort of candles they might be, and that might be sort of organic candles, soy candles, vegan candles, natural candles. And when we actually get away from all the chaos and the masses in the candle market, and we go straight away into the luxury candles, we get more expensive, then luxury organic candles, again niche market, and also quite expensive, high end. And when we go a little further, to have these in our titles and descriptions for the actual candles that we're selling. And that's an example of actually niching down. So in this example, we're going to be going with a much smaller product range and niching down, and a completely different strategy when it comes to the actual marketing. And this again, obviously I talked about candles, but another one, you know, like bath bombs is another example, and you can take the same sort of approach with that and just work your way down into a niche, which is a way in which many stores have become six-figure stores pretty quickly when doing a good job of this. And they do a good job by following my top tips, which is to come next. So now moving on to my top 4 tips for each strategy. Do this well and you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be doing much better in your Etsy or Amazon stores. So tip number 1 is obviously take the time to do your research well. This is really the research in looking for really top products that are in demand, which are recording sales, recording reviews. You may pop to Etsy and see lots of reviews for an item, and you may see lots of added to basket symbols for this particular product, and you know you're on the right tracks. But you'll spend a lot of time being applied into the research that's required before you actually choose the product for yourself to add to your store. And so again, just talking about reviews, obviously like only like 1 in 10 people actually leave a review. And so it's a really good indicator of the possible level of sales which an item is making. So tip number 2 is educate yourself in writing titles and tags. Now this is especially important for when it comes to playing the numbers game, because almost all of your sales are going to come from search, and that's because you're not going to deploy other marketing strategies when you're playing the numbers game, because you're playing the numbers game, and that means that you're creating lots and lots of products, and you're not going to be making sales of every product every day. It's just that the amount of products that you've got are all contributing a little each week to your pot, if you like, and it's just really just down to sheer volume. But when we go with sheer volume, it really does come down to the actual search, and that's why it's absolutely crucial that you become an expert in writing titles and tags. So if you haven't actually already seen my video on writing titles and tags, go and check that out. You'll be an expert by the time you've finished watching that, and it will really help you when you're playing the numbers game. Tip number 3, so commit to a fixed number of new product listings each week. So adding like 10 listings per week will give you like a store holding 560 products by this time next year. And if you do number 1 and number 2 right and do the jobs well, you'll really be well on your way to creating a worthwhile store which creates a really good income. And my tip number 4 for playing the numbers game is always review your shop data and to see what is selling and what searches are being made by visitors. And the purpose of this is to really double down on what you see is getting you your visits and sales, what keywords are actually getting you your visitors and the sales that you are making. And when you do make sales, take a look at those products. Can you offer different versions of those particular products? So just slightly tweaks just to make them different. Or in some cases, you may want to use, if you've got like a particular candle and you've done a really good job of doing your titles and tags research, and you may have like extra really good popular keywords and tags that you just couldn't fit into the one listing. And so you may wish to use different photography and to deploy even more titles and tags onto a different version of the same product. So really doubling down. And again, you could offer multiples of what you've found to have a good rate of sales. And so, if someone's like buying a candle, and that particular candle's turning out to be your top seller, you may wish to make different versions of that candle, different photographs, use different titles and tags, and you may wish to create bundles of that particular product. So a slight discount for if a person buys like 3 or more. And that's just another example. On back to the niche game and my top 4 tips. So if you're just getting started and you're not quite sure what to sell and you're just looking around, then I certainly do recommend that the product that you choose is a consumable, high demand product. So the candle is going back to the candle. So the candle is obviously a great example of a consumable. Another example would be bath bomb. Another example would be craft supplies. And these are all excellent examples of products that can be purchased. And then if you do your job right, get the packaging right, get your customer service right, then you're going to develop repeat business. And that is the key. Every business will say that the lifeblood to their business is repeat business. And if you've got a choice, if you're not playing the numbers game, you've got to get repeat business. You can't open an Etsy store or an Amazon store with a small product range with no repeat business. It's just not gonna work, where you have to just literally keep finding a new customer again and again and again. The key, really, the most successful sellers, the people who have stayed in business, are the ones that do get repeat business. So if you've got a choice, if you're not playing the numbers game, then I do recommend that you choose a consumable in demand product to sell. And as a handmade seller, always go for the high-end quality items, high in quality in which you make, but also high in quality with regards to the packaging. And it's just for the exact same reasons, for repeat business, and also for higher margins. And that is also the key. Repeat business and profit margin are the two biggies. It's what we've basically always got to aim for, both repeat business and high profit margins. The high profit margins enable you to grow your range because you're going to have more money to purchase more products for your store. But not only that, you're also going to have an advertising budget. So if the margin is big enough, you can certainly start testing with ads. A lot of my students have got try for Instagram ads. Certainly test with Etsy ads. Not so much success with Etsy ads, especially if your item is of a lower value, so sort of $10 to $20. But certainly if you are producing an item which is more along the lines of say $25, $35 plus, and obviously we've seen you see candles that are the luxury candles, high-end candles, great packaging, which do sell for that sort of level, and the profit margin is much bigger. And where you have that, then there is that space, that lovely sort of sweet spot space where you can put a certain amount towards the advertising budget to grow your customer base. And again, when you grow your customer base on a repeat business store, you can pretty much guarantee your success if you've got those two working well. Now, tip number 3 is just choose just one social media platform to double down on. So this is different obviously to playing the numbers game, because when the numbers game, it's all about the search. It's about being absolutely fantastic at writing titles and tags, knowing your keyword research. As I said, if you've watched my video on writing titles and tags, if you want to be great at writing those, because it will just give you this massive boost if you're not there yet. But choosing, if you're going for the niche products, then you've got a smaller range, you're going for repeat business, and you're possibly going to try and price your products higher to have an advertising budget. Then I do recommend that you're going to go for one social platform, and most of my clients go for like Pinterest or Instagram out of the two, and that's just to list daily. So daily pins, literally different variations of pins of the product photographs, creating dozens and dozens of pins so that you can pin daily, and creating a strategy around that. I do have some training on Pinterest in my 1-hour free training if you want to check the link below. But inside Craft Life Academy, there's also a complete checklist, an advanced strategy for people to follow, which is creating a large number of pins and a system of pinning and also repinning, so eventually you can work it on autopilot. But as I've said, if you've got that high profit margin, you can certainly test with ads on Pinterest. Certainly test with the pins. Absolutely do the pins, and test with Instagram if you're going for Instagram. And a lot of people do. I've seen some 6-figure candle making stores, for instance. They started off on Instagram, and they're just sending traffic directly to their store and doing very well from it. Now, if those ads are successful, if you're seeing a positive return on investment from the ads that you're running on either Pinterest or Instagram, then at that point I do recommend that you have a Facebook page, and to also test with Facebook ads, because there's really no better laser targeting than with Facebook ads. But again, it only works when you've got that margin and you've got that ability to test with enough money to get the sales within the advertising budget, so that you're still on top. Now, I keep talking about repeat business, and there's something that a lot of sellers miss, and I see it a lot with Etsy sellers. So when they say, even top sellers continue to say it, and that Etsy ads don't work. And sure, for many stores they're not going to work because their products average order value is too low for them to make it work. But again, when you're thinking about the repeat business, we also need to be very mindful of something important, which is called the LTV. Now, that's the lifetime value of a customer. What is the lifetime value of every customer that you bring into your store when you have a store which revolves around repeat business? So, for instance, if you've got a product which is around sort of costs around about sort of $6 or $7, and you're pricing it at around sort of like $30 $30 to $35, something like that. So you've gone in as at the top end as high as you can, and you're trying to differentiate on quality and great service and packaging. Then you've got this little budget to test with the Facebook ads, and it can be absolutely laser targeting, because obviously you can do two things here. You can target both the trade. These are obviously large group owners who you could possibly do a joint venture with, or try to advertise directly with, but you can also target their followers. So for instance, if someone was developing large wedding photographs and sliding them onto artwork to sell directly to the customer, then you can target audiences of wedding photographers or wedding planners, wedding gift idea, wedding Facebook group owners, huge audience there. And you can literally target directly into those individual customers' news feed with your advertisement. And so there's nothing more laser targeted than that. And so if you've got this, if you choose it from the beginning, you're going to go high and you're going to go for quality, you're going to go for a higher price, then you're going to have the margin built in to do all these tests. And all these tests will eventually, ultimately give you the biggest chance of a better return on investment and growth, and to scale quickly, which is obviously what we all want to do here. And finally, top tip number 4 for playing the niche game is what I call the in-demand product hack. So let's just take a quick look at that. So lots of top Etsy sellers will often give away that they have just 2 or 3 products out of 100 which are developing the most revenue for them. And it really is down to finding these golden nuggets really to reproduce for yourself, so that you're not introducing products which just don't get any sales. And so one of the hacks is what I call the reviews against reviews for shop. So it's literally, if you take this item, for example, really popular flower pendant gold chains, and we take a look at these numbers here. So reviews for this item, 127. Like what I said before, remember about people leaving reviews, only sort of between 1 and 5 or 1 in 10 actually will leave a review. So there's a good chance they've sold over 1,000 of these. And we look at this figure here, 127, and then again compare it against the reviews for the shop. So number of reviews for the shop, 402. So what I do is here, and let's just do a little calculation. We divide, we go 127, we divide it by 402, and then multiply that by 100 to give us just the percentage. And what this is telling us, I've got 31.6%. And so 31.6% of this entire store's reviews have come from this one product. Now, when you start doing these tests, you'll often see that the percentage is often between sort of 1% up to 1%, 2. And that just shows a product that is sort of contributing, shall we say. But this is certainly a product in this case, which is a massive seller for this store, because obviously it's contributing over 30% of its entire reviews. And so it really is a case of, this hack is really a case of finding those products where the shop owners have just a very small number of products which are literally contributing to almost all of their income in the store. And that's the way in which we can find fantastic products, in-demand products to sell when we're sort of guessing. So if I do talk to a lot of people making jewelry, and they've got the skills, they've got the skills for jewelry making, but the items that they've picked are items which they like personally. Historically, they like these personally, so they may be putting together certain types of jewelry with stones and things, or which are just sort of, they like them, but they're not really massively in demand. And so that's when we see stores recording just the odd sale here and there each week. But when we apply this sort of strategy and we take those existing skills that people have got, and then we put them to use with really in-demand, high-value products, then that's when we can start to see the success coming in. And then obviously, as part of my training, as I said before, you can check out my titles and tags videos, but obviously part of the training is also to get this area here with the title and the descriptions and the tags absolutely it's spot on. And a huge amount of even successful sellers, a huge amount are not doing it as well as they could be doing it. Some are doing a great job, some are doing a goodish job, and some are doing an okay job, but there's many that have been around for years. It's really their reviews, sales and reviews over lots of years that's giving them their sort of exposure, if you like, and it's going to be taken away from them by this next generation of Etsy sellers who are going to be really clued up on how to spot in-demand products, how to source them, how to list them really well. And so that is what I see really for the future. Really quickly, just back to the LTV, because I kind of got sidetracked there. But with regards to the LTV, the lifetime value of a customer, the point that I was making was that the mistake that often a lot of people make is that they look at their advertising, and they'll look at the costs of what their ad spend, and they'll look at exactly what they've made against what they're selling. And in some cases, obviously, it's great to carry on because the spend is such where you're making like 2, 3, 4 times. I've got an Amazon account where I've got a 6+ return on ad spend, so it's just a no-brainer to keep it going. But some people's is a much less, and then it gets to the point where you've spent, say, $10 and you've sold a product for $15. So in which case you've pretty much lost money, and that is very common, and what we see a lot of on Etsy. But say for instance you spent $10, and then someone's bought a product for $15, and a lot of people that would be it. They'd just stop running the ads. But let's just say, for instance, if we look at obviously the consumable, what I've been saying about consumables and repeat businesses and some like margins. Well, then a customer, what if that customer, on average, your customers will come back, say, 3 times in a year? I mean, what about that? So as part of your metrics, that what you're going to be working on is establishing exactly what your LTV is. What is the lifetime value of your average customer? In which case, it could be $60 or $70 or more, certainly over the lifetime, but it could be that over a 12-month period, especially if people are coming back on a regular basis. We often see like subscription services for consumables where people are adding to get something once a month. And this is where obviously you need to look at this advertising more closely, because a lot of people obviously run to the hills when they see what it's cost against a product sale. But it's not just a product sale. You've just acquired a customer, and that is the difference between the really successful sellers and the sellers who can't really get a grasp of exactly what that involves with regards to the advertising and the spend, and what can be recouped back over a longer period of time. And so that is really what the LTV is all about. So if you've developed a consumable type business, it's another metric along with things like click-through rates and profit margins. How much are people coming back and spending with you? And that's just really what I wanted to, just the point that I wanted to make with regards to LTV, and a really important metric to keep an eye on. So that is the end of this video with regards to the niche business training and playing the numbers game. But if you did like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you do want to learn more about sliding, Pinterest, finding products that are in demand, Etsy shop hacks, if you want to find out more, then check out my 1-hour free training on the link below. It'll give you a great start if you are an existing seller that's just not getting the sales that you really want, or if you're someone that's a crafter and that's planning on launching an Etsy or Amazon store. It will give you a really great start. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video.